Hey there guys, and welcome back to another painting video. This week we're going to be painting this awesome looking miniature. I believe it is called the Evoker from Warcrow. So if you don't know what Warcrow is, I'll put a link down in the video description and the card here on my unboxing of it. But it is Corvus Belli's newly released skirmish game. I wouldn't say similar to Infinity, but it sort of is. It just uses different dice, but basically think of it as a fantasy version of Infinity. So in this case we have one of the orcs here from the northern tribes. But what I'm going to do is something a little bit different with this one. We're going to do it in a majority of speed paints, or I should say contrast paints, but we are going to speed paint it. So yeah, that's the miniature. So I've gone ahead and primed it in black. Now I did originally prime it in grey, so I've just gone over with Abaddon black on the brush, thinned down a little bit, and just made sure obviously I got in all the recesses. Next I've got two shades of grey. So the first one is Dawnstone, and then Oath 1 grey, and basically I'm going to dry brush with these. Now I've got a wet palette here. I do have a dry palette, so just make sure that's fine. It's just a bit of dirt and stuff on there that has stuck in. It's not going to go into the paint. So first of all we're going to apply the Dawnstone. Oh, if I can get the spout to stay in. It's the only thing with these cheap bottles that I bought, is sometimes the spout clogs up with paint and then decides to keep hold of the nozzle. So I'm just going to put a little bit down here. That should be enough. And then I'm going to use a medium dry brush, see if I can find it. So I've got here the Artist Opus Series D. This is a round top brush. The bristles aren't the softest, but it is a good brush. If you can get something like a small makeup brush, then the bristles are going to be much softer and you'll get a bit of a smoother blend. Now I've also got here a paper towel that has got some water on. All I've done is clean water and just sort of smeared it on. I say clean, relatively clean, and yeah, just smearing it. And all this is going to do is get the bristles damp enough that when I start dipping into this grey, and on the back of it, wiping off the excess and dabbing it in. Now, I don't need to take off too much of this because this is going to be the heavier sort of layer over the top that the majority of the model is going to be covered in. So all I've done, just touching it in the damp there, and I am literally going to cover, I'd say 75% of this model, leaving only the deepest recesses in black. Now I am trying to get all of the details, even in the sort of the deeper area here. You can see I've picked up the ring, but not so much the cloak there, and then the same here. We need to do this a few times. So you can see here I'm just dabbing it, get majority of the paint off onto the wet paper towel, and then start at the top, because if you apply too much then it's on the lighter area anyway and won't matter too much, and then you can bring it down into an area that's going to be darker and you'll get that dry brush on there. So we're just coming down, like I said, covering 90% of the model maybe. Try and get in those gaps for the sort of those larger flat areas if you can. just going to rest this on my finger because it's a little bit flexible, this piece, and I don't want it snapping. I mean, this is quite a flexible, it's not quite plastic, it's almost resin-like. It's a new Cyocast that they use for their miniatures, or some of their Infinity miniatures, but they seem to have done, so far, the whole box set is Cyocast, and I'm assuming that going forward we are going to be looking at pretty much all Cyocast miniatures. I can't see them doing metal, so yeah, for Warcrow we're going to be looking at all Cyocast. I think it's not a bad thing, it's just you can see there's this sort of texture here that gets picked up. I think the casting process still needs a little bit of perfection, but otherwise it's not too bad a material. It was worse in its earlier days, I'll say that. So you'll see I'm even doing the under area in grey because I don't want black shadows, and obviously if you're using contrast paints you are going to end up with the black showing through, and if all you've got on one side of your model or the underside is black, then you are going to end up with just black there, which for me just doesn't feel right. It feels like even in shadow it should still have a little bit of darkness to it, but you'll see what I'm going to do in a later step anyway that will help with things. So that's the grey, and you can see, you know, we've pretty much covered that in grey. There's just a few little areas that don't want to get picked up, which is exactly what we want. So you can see here I've not quite got enough on that bag, so I just want to pick off a little bit more there. So now I'm going to remove as much as I can. Now you don't want to wash the brush because what's going to happen is you're going to put moisture into the brush. So just remove what you can, and then we'll grab the Ultra One Grey. Okay, so now I've got that on the palette here. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time trying to remove quite a bit of the Ultra One Grey. So what I'm going to do is dump in a couple of times just to overpower that Dawnstone. Really work that into the bristles, and then dampen it a little bit on that towel. Now with this, all I'm looking to do is just catch sort of the top and one side of the model, and then some of the edges on the other side. So all across the top here. So we've got a skull there, so that'll be great in the white or the light grey. And then all along the bottom here, just where the light will catch. So I'm using the last of what's on the brush here, so that I'm not sort of overpowering anything. The underside here, not so much. Get some of that skin on there. And you can see I've not gone back to the grey on the palette for this. Anything I'm doing is purely what's on the brush. Okay, so I think that's probably about right. Just get some of that bone on there. Okay, so you can see now we've got a good blend between that Oath 1 grey and the Dawnstone. Now I'm going to do one more final dry brush and just find my paint. You can use any white you want for this, but basically we are doing a white dry brush. So here I've got White Star from Two Thin Coats. Just happens to be the closest paint to me. It's not in a storage tub. I don't need a lot of this. And for this one I'm actually going to use a smaller brush. So again, Artist Opus Series D, but it's the small one. I haven't got the extra small, otherwise I would use that. If you have the extra small, then obviously you can use that. Otherwise, the small or any small dry brush you've got. So this one, what I prefer to do it on my thumb, and you can see there is barely anything coming off this now. Just going to touch that into the wet paper towel, and this is literally one side, top area only. The camera may not pick up much of a difference with this, but we'll see. Just keeping it to this sort of top backpack area, and then a little bit down at the bottom here, just because the light is going to come down and it will hit this bottom area. Now I'm barely touching this. You can see that I'm barely holding the brush. I'm literally just looking to catch this side and literally just catch it. And there we go. That is the prepared model for just going to trim the top of that because I think that that's a bit of the mould. But yeah, there's the prepared model ready for contrast paints or whatever speed paints you use. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go in and do the darkest colours first. Well, I say the darkest colours. We're going to do the deepest colours, starting with the skin, then moving to the robe, and then the backpack and everything will be done last with like the bone, and we'll also do sort of this area. The contrast paint that I was considering using was going to be the Orc Flesh, but I find that's a little bit too dark, which I want for my bigger orcs, these guys. I'm going to do him as sort of like a very dark skinned black orc, and then the lighter or weaker sort of smaller orcs will be like this guy. And if you've seen me, if you haven't seen this yet, then there's a video or a link in the top corner where I will show you how to paint the three guys, these guys. So if you want to go and check those out, they're not done in contrast paints, they are done in a different method. So obviously that'll be something worth watching as well. But what I've decided to do is go for Warp Lightning for this. I'm using a size 1 brush. This is the Artist Opus Series S, and what I prefer to do, to what some painters do, is not have a lot of paint on the bristles, and I'd rather do this as a glaze, so it's not quite as fast as if you were doing pure speed painting. I'm not sure if that's toes or not there, so I'm going to leave that for a bit. That might be sandals. And basically, because you're using the black in the recesses and stuff as the shadow, you only need to glaze with this. And I'm using a small brush so that I can make sure to keep as neat as possible, because if you get this on an area you don't want this colour, then you're kind of in trouble, because obviously you can't go back in and dry brush the whole area. You might be able to get away with sort of painting it white or grey and then doing a little bit of dry brushing if you're accurate enough, but obviously ideally you just want to try and keep the colours limited to where they should be. Which is why I'm sort of starting with the lighter colours, because if you go on a darker area, then a dark colour is just going to cover that, whereas if you go the other way around, then you're kind of in trouble. Okay, so just trying to work out what's on her arm here, because she's casting a spell of what looks like fire, but she's also got this fur. I've noticed that the sculptors put hair on parts of these orcs, which is a little bit different, but with this one it's hard to tell. Like, you've got this piece here, I can't tell what that is. This is skin, and there, that's all skin in there. It looks like it could also be vines, so I'm not entirely sure. She's got a hood on this side, and then she's just got a little bit of her face revealed here, which I think looks more like a skull. But and then inside it is dark, so probably doesn't matter too much, but she is topless, so you want to make sure that we are getting her skin in between her hair there. And I think that is pretty much her skin exposed areas. A little bit in there. Okay, so you can see there, hopefully, if I can get the light to shine properly. There we go. So you can see there that the lighter area, especially on the knee, is showing, and then we've got those darker areas. And the reason I do the grey is you can see it gives it a bit more of a nice blend from the dark to the light. Okay, so next up she's got this 2-layer dress on, and okay, so I've got some Leviathan purple here, and I'm going to do this for the under part of the robe, and then I've got some Talisar blue that I'm going to use for the over part. I have no idea what this is going to turn out like, but it's kind of, you know, the fun of painting. Now I know for a fact that this stuff is going to be quite dark, probably too dark for what I want to use it for. So I'm going to thin it down slightly. Probably 1 to 1, and that way I can paint it on and see how it's going to go. So that's not too bad. I quite like that. Now I do have to be careful getting it in this recess, obviously not to hit. There goes the timer on the light. It looks like actually a 3-stage dress, but I want that bottom one to be, and again it could be surface. No, it comes down, you can see that it comes down here, so just going to go through it all. And the beauty of going light is if you decide it's too light, go back over it again and you can darken it up. So part of her knee is the under part. And then that comes round here and then down. So that means that anything in behind here is also this underdress, and you can see just in here this line that comes down, so it's sort of a half piece here to here. So that's the purple done. The Talisar blue is quite a light one already, so this shouldn't need thinning. I did way too much purple. So just going to do this in a small area here. Yeah, we can see this is quite a bright, vibrant blue. Now obviously if you're doing contrast paints without doing the previous dry brush method, so you're just doing it over a white model, that's when you want to let the paint pool, but in my opinion that's not how these should be used. They are contrast paints, therefore I believe that they're more for glazing. Changing the tone of an area or the colour, and so that's how they should be treated, which is why we do the black and grey contrast and then change it with the colour. So that's the blue. I think I want her hair to match, but I'm thinking of going from a light blue to a dark blue, so we'll do this and then we'll use ultramarines over the top Might even actually leave that bit and go with a little bit of purple down the side there. And like I said, she's got this sort of cape piece on one side. I think I'm going to do that the same as the purple. So we've got hair back here. Being careful not to get it on the staff or anywhere I don't want it. And there we go. Okay, next we'll grab, I think, if I can remember where it is, we'll go with the Doomfire Magenta, and this is just going to be that streak down the front of her hair. There, and then the end of the beads there. This side, I think, looking at it, that's hair, and coming down there is hair. There we go. I think I'm going to do that flame in that as well. Okay, next we'll go in and do all of the leather, and for that I have snakebite leather. I do have an older one somewhere that I want to use first. There we go. Make sure that we have a fairly decent point on the bristles, and again remember that we're not looking to flood or pull the areas, we're just looking to get them tinted or stained with it. We've already got the black doing the shadow for us and the whites doing the highlight, so we don't need to add it by letting it pull and sit in recesses. Okay, so she's got these sort of leather here with these straps. I'm going to do the leather part in a darker leather, but I want these straps in this lighter snakebite leather. Okay, same now, moving on to the backpack. We're going to do that in the lighter leather. I'm just looking and wondering if that piece is an overthrow. I don't think it is, so we'll just go in like so. Being careful obviously not to get it on the skulls or the bottles and stuff that she's got on here. Okay, and I think we'll do the bedroll in that colour as well. And it makes sense that it would be a brownish colour of some kind, or brownish material. Okay, I think we'll say that this is a metal strip and these are metal, but the piece in the middle is wood. And we'll do that in the snakebite leather as well. Now I'm not too worried about getting it on the metal areas, because I am going to go with a metallic paint on there, which obviously is opaque, so that will cover it fine. But I don't want it on that bone. Right, and then we'll do the same, though actually that's a bone. It looks like a bone down there as well, so we'll just say that that's one big bone. Which means we could actually move on to the bones. So next up, skeleton horde. And we're going to apply this over obviously all of the bone. So this big piece here. Now this colour I'm not super fond on. It's okay over white, but it's sort of the least opaque out of any of the contrast paints I've used so far. So what I like to do is just let it use a lot more of it, basically let it pool up more so that it really sort of tints and stains and gets that sort of bone colour in there. So we've got the skull here. We've got this hand or whatever it is. Just looking, that's a bone there, it's some sort of animal skull. And we've got some bones poking out the side here. And then the rest of those are pouches, and then we've got this bone here. Oh, I think that's actually a skull there, looking at that. So we'll get that in. And this is what I mean with the problem with going black. If you don't get it light, that doesn't look like bone in there. It's black. And I'm pretty sure that even a skull in shadow, and you're not going to get that much shadow on a person unless they're in a dark area. So really that needed to be much lighter in there. Okay, so for the leather on her wrist here, I've got some Garrett's Sewer, which is a very dark brown, so do be careful applying this. Probably should have thinned it down a bit, but it will be okay. I just want it to look different, so yeah, I think that works. Just make sure there's nowhere else that I could use this. We've got some straps, we've got some pouches, we've got a weird thing here. No, I think that is it. Okay, next up I want to do these sort of these rope pieces. For that I'm going to use a mix. Now this hopefully will work. We've got a mix of 1 part Gilliam flesh and then 3 parts skeleton horde, because I can always add more Gilliam flesh in there. And I want to brighten it up a little bit, so I'm going to test this and see if this Bad Moon Yellow works. Nope, that's come out very yellow. So we'll go back in with the skeleton horde and add some more of that. Yeah, it's still quite yellow. We'll apply it and have a look. I think that actually works. That's not too bad actually. That's that one coming down here and here. One thing I have noticed that I've missed is we've got some of these pieces made out of bone, so I will have to go back and redo those. This piece looks like it would be made out of bronze or something. I think we'll use a bit of copper on there just to try and separate things a little bit. So that's those, and then we've got this slightly in here, and I think that's it. Oh no, at the top there on that. Okay, and we'll go back to the skeleton horde, and I want to do this one on our hand because it's like strings, and then these bone pieces here, and these ones on the back here. I'm also going to put a second coat over all of the bone areas. Right, I think rather than throw too many colours into this, I'm going to use the purple for the piece that's on her arm, the straps here. It just feels like, you know, you want to tie some of these colours up through the model. go. Now we've got a problem with these hand wraps, or these ribbons here, wraps, because we've got the bone of the bone, so we need to give them a different colour. I think the yellow is going to be too strong. We could do them as a coloured wrap, maybe. Otherwise we can do them as a white, and for that we'll use Apothecary White. So for that we'll use Apothecary White. Probably not going to notice too much difference with it because of the grey that's already there, but the contrast is going to smooth it out a little bit. And I just realised we've also forgot her thing there, which we'll do with this purple as well. Nope, gone a bit too thin with it. There we go. The blade, or the handle for the blade, we'll do with this yellow. There we go. So you can see by having already had the grey to white highlights that we've already got these natural highlights of the contrast paints, which means we haven't got to do anything with them. You can see these sort of 3 spots here, the highlights. You can see that the leather has this dark centre and then these brighter edges. So yeah, this is exactly what contrast paints are designed to do. We've got this light line down here, this ridge. You can see that these ones are lighter than in here. So all we've got to do now is the flame, this piece growing around her foot. I'm not sure, like looking at it, it doesn't look like a foot. Let's have a look at the reference image. They've blobbed something over the top of it. They've painted the foot in the same, so yeah, I think it wasn't totally clear to them either. So we'll class it all as the same. All of this is going to be a stone. So we've got the beads in our hair. We'll do them in, and then we'll do them in a bright yellow. So we'll just go with a straight Bad Moon yellow. And just let that dry there. Okay, so what we need next is something for the grey, for the stones, and for that we've got some Black Templar, but again this is quite it's a blue grey, or a blue black I should say. We're going to thin it as we only want to stain the surface. That's about 1 to 1. We'll go a little bit more. So it's 1 part paint, 2 parts water. Like I said, you can always go back in if you need to and darken it up with a second layer. I think it might actually be a head. You've got two lady bumps here, an arm, and then I think this is some sort of head, and then like a body. So yeah, I don't think that is a foot. Alright, so that's that. We've still got all of these, haven't we? I think we'll do them in the light bone colour as well. Just because I'm very limited on what paints I have. I've got about 30 of them and still a little bit limited. Crazy. This one I'm going to do stone like it's some sort of idol or something. So we'll do that the same with the Black Templar. I think this is supposed to be some sort of smoke that's coming out of the eye and then swirling around her arm and becoming this flame. So that will all be the same thing. So what we'll do now is move on to the metallics. Okay, so for the metallics, I'm just going to use some lead belcher here. A small amount on there, we don't need a lot. And I've swapped the brush out for a cheap synthetic. You see it's so cheap they've even got bristles coming down the side of it. That's not actually the one that I want. There's the other one gone. There. It's the same cheap, but it's size 1. And that way we don't have the metallics messing up the expensive brushes. So I'm just going to go through now and pick out all of the metallic areas. Just noticed I haven't done the back of the bone there. Okay, on the back, just checking. Suppose we could do these pieces rather than have them in the bone, just make them stand out a little bit as bits of metal. There's no buckles that I can see, so I think that is it. There's no other buckles. Oh, there's a little loop down there. Right, and that's for the metallics. I think that is it. I'm going to do some more bone just on here and here, and I've got to actually colour that piece there. So let's get that bone on. And also that strap on her hand that's casting whatever spell that is. Okay, now for a little bit of fun. So you can leave it here if you wanted to, you know, you could call that done. Like I said, it's got all of the natural highlights in there if I get some good lighting on it. It's got the dark recesses and it does have a bit of blend up to those lighter areas. So that is how you do contrasts. Now, if you don't want to do what I'm going to do, then you can skip this white part and just do the part where I colour this. But what I'm going to do is, oh, we might actually, if that's still wet, no it's not. This is because I'm in one of the hottest rooms in the UK, I swear, which is why I got the fan on, so apologies if this video has had the sound of a fan periodically. Right, so this brush is a little bit damp from where I cleaned it after I used it earlier. But what I want to do is basically get this flame as almost white as possible, because obviously it's some sort of magical flame. It's not going to have shadow in there really, it's going to be, you know, it's a light source. And then what we want to do is I'm going to do it as some OSL, some object source lighting. So all I'm doing with this white paint is I'm just going to catch around here where that light would hit, along here, and then across some of the skin there. Now where it's going to be brightest is nearest the flame, so that's going to be almost a flame colour. Underneath is obviously not going to be the flame colour. Now this bit will because of the light here and the way the fingers are bent, but underneath here won't be. We do have this lighter bit. Okay, so far we've completely messed that up, which is sort of what we want. Now we're going to use the magenta that I wanted the flame as, and hopefully this works. So what I want to do is flood the flame quite a bit and get that magenta down into those recesses on it. And if you just want the flame done, then obviously this is what you would do for the flame. You wouldn't apply the white over the rest of the miniature that we just did. But if you want this OSL kind of look, it's not perfect. What I'm going to do is thin this magenta down slightly. 2 parts paint, 1 part water this time, and basically go over where we just did all that white and that's going to give us the lighting of that source. So the whole of that hand is going to be lit. Obviously we've got the face. Yes, it's blended in with the hair, but you want to still put those colours on beforehand so that you've got that transition in areas where you don't know where this light was going to pick up. So yeah, not the brightest, but we can build that up. So what we'll do, go back into that white, and I'm just going to use the flat of the brush and just sort of touch on some of these edges. And get the top of the flame here. Now this is still a little bit wet, so it's going to blend, which is what I want. And that will give us a bit more of a whiter pink. And then again, we can use that thin down magenta and go back over that white, and that will give us that slightly lighter area. There we go. And that is all we need to do for a quick tabletop ready paint scheme. So that's taken about an hour to do, start to finish. Obviously we've got to base it, but yeah, there's the model, guys. Nothing overly complicated. Now if you wanted to do this a step up, you could go and find a lighter colour for each of these and then just edge highlight everything. You know, I've seen other artists do that, but that would obviously be another step of detail, so it depends on how detailed you want. But for this video, all I wanted to show you guys was just how to get quick and easy contrasting for a nice effective tabletop ready look. And hopefully you'll agree that I've achieved it. It's not going to win any awards, but it's going to get you playing with some colour on the table. So as always, guys, thanks a lot for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you, or you know, hit that like button. If you're following this on TikTok, then obviously go ahead and follow me. That would be amazing. Give it some love by hitting, you know, all these things down the side. And if you're over on watching this on YouTube, then obviously you want to hit the things along the bottom here, the like and subscribe. But that is all today, guys. So thank you ever so much for joining me. If you want to get yourself a copy of this game, it is a great game, by the way. Warcrow Winds from the North starter set, 2-player starter set. Retails around about £100. I think the RRP is £110. Most places are selling it for, I think, around about 90 to 100. So go and check that out. Huge thank you to Corvus Belly for sending me this set to paint up for you guys, and I shall catch you all next time. So until next time, guys, take it easy and keep painting those minis.